Welcome to the channel. So this week we'll make some stuffed flatbreads. They're unleavened, meaning that there's no yeast, no sourdough, no baking powder. The dough just contains flour, water, salt, and a little bit of oil. That's all your ingredients. Super simple. You'll find a detailed recipe with all the weights and measurements down in the description box. So let's see what equipment we'll need. Ideally, you'd bake these on a thick solid surface, so I'm going to use a cast iron skillet. Then you'll need a bowl, scales for weighing ingredients, scraper, and a rolling pin. And that's all you need. So now to the ingredients. We'll need some white flour, some water, some wholemeal flour, some salt, a little bit of olive oil, and also some kind of filling. Now you can fill these with whatever. I'm using a dry vegetable curry here. But whatever filling you choose, make sure it's not too wet. So let's begin. Get your bowl, add your water, and add the oil, add in the salt, give it a good mix just to dissolve any large salt crystals. And once it's all nicely dissolved, you can add in both the white flour and the wholemeal flour. And then grab your scraper and just give it a good mix in the bowl until you don't see any more dry flour. And then tip your dough out on your table. I'm going to use a regular kneading method here. I press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand. Using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand and repeat. This will not take more than 5 to 7 minutes. This dough is a little bit sticky due to the wholemeal flour and the oil. You can just use your scraper to scrape it off if it sticks to the table. So once you have some decent gluten development, you can shape it into a ball and then wrap it in cling film, because we need to leave it to rest. We need to let the gluten relax before we roll these out. Otherwise, as we are rolling them, they'll just pull back together. I will rest these for at least 2 hours, but you can leave them in the fridge overnight if you like. And right now, you can feel the dough is a little bit stiff, and after those 2 hours, you will see how soft it has become, and now it's ready for rolling. Now you have to use your scales for dividing these. Each flatbread is made up of 2 sides. This recipe makes 5 flatbreads, so you want each dough ball to be 50 grams. If you eyeball it, then you'll end up with very inconsistent results here. So have a tray or a plate ready, because we'll let them rest after we pre-shape them. And once you've divided all your dough, the pre-shaping step is quite simple. Just grab a piece of dough and fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. And then turn it smooth side up and tighten it against the table, and repeat. This will give you a chance to get your shaping practice in. And once you're done with that, dust your tray or your plate or whatever you're using with flour, and then place your dough balls on it. Make sure to leave a little gap between them. You don't want them to stick together too much as they are resting. We'll leave them to rest for another 30 minutes, and the reason for that is again the same as before. Because we folded them and shaped them into tight balls, they're tense and they need to relax before we stretch them out with a rolling pin. So dust them with some flour, prevent sticking, cover them up and leave them to rest. And whilst they are resting, you can preheat your oven to 250 degrees C with the fan on, and also preheat your pan. These do require high temperature, so don't worry, just crank it up. So once your dough balls are nicely relaxed, we are ready to shape, and I do these one by one. Dust your table with flour quite generously, you don't want any stickiness. And work with 2 dough balls at a time to make 1 flatbread. Get yourself some water ready, we'll use this to seal the edge, and also get yourself a rolling pin. Now what I like to do is flatten them out a little bit with my fingertips, and then continue on with the rolling pin. And then to finish, I stretch them on the table using the palms of my hands. Now to make them really thin takes a bit of practice. And if you don't feel confident doing that yet, or if you're struggling a little bit, just roll them thicker. For best results, stretch them as thin as you can. When it comes to the filling, you don't want too much, maybe 3 to 4 tablespoons. And then spread it out evenly in a thin layer. Don't press too hard, otherwise you might poke a hole in your dough. Then using some water, wet the rim of the dough, and then carefully lay on the second piece of dough and seal. And don't worry if they're not perfectly round, a bit wonky. It gives them character, right? They'll still taste delicious. And if you mess this one up, you'll still have 4 to practice on. But now it's baking time. Get your hot pan out the oven And then carefully, using the palms of your hands, lift the dough into the pan. When handling a thin piece of dough, try to avoid using your fingertips. You don't want to poke any holes in it. Alright, so we'll get this one in the oven and we'll bake it for 2 to 3 minutes on one side. And then flip it over and bake it for 2 to 3 more minutes. You want to see some nice color and no wet spots. And that's the stuffed flatbread. Cover them with your Funky's tea towel to keep them pliable and fresh. And as always, any questions or suggestions, write them down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.